crimson power burst from his torso, each half as thick as his mirrors were wide. They whipped through the air, growing longer by the moment until they reached his mirrors and tore through them as if they were glass. They shattered instantly, the pieces scattering and quickly falling prey to gravity. What? It happened too quickly. In only 3 seconds, all his mirrors had been broken, the pieces falling to the ground. Knowing he had to move quickly, the masked boy tossed a volley of Sanbon from the piece he remained in and warped into one of the shards directly over the blonde. With another almost animalistic roar of fury, a wave of crimson chakra scattered the needles. But that was fine, it was just a distraction. The instant the blonde's attention was on the needles, Haku launched himself down with as much speed as he could muster, aiming to stab the enraged boy. It was not to be. Naruto jumped away, moving nearly as fast as he himself did with the assistance of the mirrors. No, I have to get away. Not fast enough. The blonde was on him almost the moment he completed the thought.
I've been doing
his
all
hand
right.
raised
How you
above
doing?
his head, his hands clawed and displaying his now sharpened nails. Haku had just enough time to dodge, and the blonde's hand crashed down where he once stood, kicking up a cloud of debris. Trained instinct drove him, readying a counterattack before he even considered his next move. But it was a pointless effort. More chains, much smaller this time, burst from the cloud and surged towards the masked boy.
If you want me to pause
He
it,
threw
I'll
his
pause
Sanbon
it.
in.
I'm sitting there playing Fortnite. Decided to have the camera full screen since I don't think anybody gives a shit about it. Yeah, I know that you guys can hear the video. I tried having it not be heard on my live stream before, but doesn't work out. It just plays over it, and since sometimes nobody comes into the live stream, it really didn't matter me listening to it. But if you want to know what I'm listening to, it's what if Naruto rebuilt the Uzumaki clan part 1? Say, what if it's a what if story. Come on, get hypnotized. Oh, okay. Yeah, I got into a bunch of Naruto what ifs. Bunch of them's good. The only what if story I do not like is whenever he gets the Rinnegan. If you know what the Rinnegan is, it's whenever he has the purple eye and it has the freaking spiral or whatever. There's stories out there. It's like, what if Naruto was born with the Rinnegan, or what if Naruto got the Rinnegan at a young age? And I'm sitting there like, no, the Rinnegan is it's a cop out. Why in the hell should the Rinnegan be accessible to Naruto? It's not. It's just stupid. And then there's stories out there that's pretty damn good. And I get into about 3 to 4 videos into the story, which is about 4 or 5 hours long each. And in the 4th or 5th video, about halfway through, they reveal the powers of Naruto's eyes. Oh, it's the Rinnegan. I like, okay, pause and close, not listening to it no more, because the Rinnegan is a fucking cop out. It's like, I gotta fill this hole in the story. How can I fill it? Oh, I know. Let's get a power of the eyes that can do a lot of shit just to fill the fucking holes that I put in the story. I wish they never created it. Anyways, this is Olive. If you don't know this statue story, this Reddit user was playing a game and her younger sister passed away. And her younger sister was named Olive. And she came across a bug, one of those roly bugs, and her name was Olive, but she used the bug throughout the match, and she ended up winning the match. And Fortnite caught um, caught a hold of the story, and in honor of that and the sister, they put the statue in. It's not breakable, and every time I get a crown win or something like that, every time I get a crown win or something, I want to sit there and just goof off. I come here and just goof off for a bit. But I don't even try to win. I don't try winning these games anymore. I just want to sit here, have fun, and chill. Public match, yep. Fortnite Mares. Jason Voorhees. So how's your day been? How's your week, month? How's your life been? I lost all my skill, re-downloaded Fortnite the other day in my first match played. I fell to my death. It's alright. Hell. Just play the game just to have fun. It's a good way to relax. Yeah, still struggling. I don't have a job. I've been depressed. Most days I don't want to get out of bed. Most days I don't want to make videos. most days. I just don't want to do this today. Hell, you know how often I go live? Used to go live on YouTube, right? I think this is the first time I've been live, what, in a month? And I used to be live every day or every other day consistently. Yeah, haven't seen you in a while now. Don't hold it against you at all, man. I'm glad you came in to say hi. I realize everybody's got their own things to do in life. They got their own struggles, so I don't, I can't articulate what I'm trying to say. I don't expect people to be in here all the time. Every day I go live, or I don't expect people to watch my videos all the time, like my videos, share, or anything. I don't expect people to subscribe. I'm happy whenever I do get all that, but I love this chainsaw. I I'm addicted to TikTok. At nighttime, I watch a lot of TikTok too. if I get too interested in show or TikTok videos, time just flies by. Get in an interesting game, time flies by. You don't think time goes by fast, but whenever you do something that you like or makes you feel happy or good, it just makes life a little bit easier. There we go. About to say, I knew I had more gas in me. If this chainsaw runs on gas, you would think it'd be able to heal itself or you know, that's something to check out. I'm gonna go to the gas station and see if we can't fix this chainsaw. That's bullshit. Bullshit. Epic Games fixed the mechanics here. If it runs on gas, you should be able to fix it at the gas station. God, that sucks. Maybe if I get if I get the gas cans, I'm possibly gonna die for this, but I'm gonna go back for the gas cans at the dam. Oh. Next match, we only got about 6 people left in here, so we can do it the next game. Hey dude, I got your car. Come back here. I got your car. I just want you to witness me. Come back here. Hey, I want your bot. Give me your bot. Oh, no. No. That was BS. BS. Major bullshit. I'm gonna hide here. Nobody will find me. That works. Ooh, Scooby snacks. Thank you. Oh, it's only got 40 left. Well, that'll give me some health. Animation. I don't know if you could hear that. Oh shit! What the hell? Oh, nice. And this is my first game of the day, so I lucked out. Lucked out winning the crown on the first game of the day. Oh wait, hold on, I gotta change settings. Since I live streaming, I need to take out licensed audio, so don't get any copyright. So I'm gonna get one of those gas cans from the dams, and if I come across the chainsaw, I'll see if I can't fix the chainsaw with the gas can. I mean, you think you should be able to do that, but if it's wear and tear, the platform that fixes the car should also fix the chainsaw. I mean, I know it's just a game, so. Can you imagine in real life if all you gotta do to fix your car is just drive on the pad and all of a sudden it fixes itself and you can drive off? Oh man, my transmission is shot. Okay, let's go tow it to the gas station and put it on the pad, see if we can fix it real quick. Then again, that could be a double-edged sword there because if your transmission is shot and it's only down to like 1 HP, a little bump in the road is going to make it explode. Am I willing to take the chance to have the car explode with the bump on the road just to go and get it fixed at the gas station? Be funny if I don't get a freaking car. Or not a car, a chainsaw. You're not gonna get a car. I've already had that achievement done already. No cars for me. Hold on, they took out the did they take out the hammers? They used to have hammers in this on this season. I haven't seen a hammer in this game yet. Yeah, shockwave hammers. They had it throughout the Power Rangers uh, playthrough. I thought they had them yesterday too, but since they brought the chainsaw in, they might have take vaulted hammers. Then again, I'm sure I'm just not paying attention to it or something. It's a good thing I'm not afraid of spiders. I have a freaking arachnophobia. Hey, I know what game we can play. We can play Fortnite. It has no spiders in it at all. See someone just run by here and be like, ah! It's the forest. Yeah, seems like they vaulted the hammers. Oh well. Because usually, whenever you kill um, the bots, AIs, they usually have one or two. Alright, we got that chainsaw. I got a couple of videos showing that I had nothing but shockwave hammers. And there we go. Had nothing but shockwave hammers in the inventory, and I spammed the hell out of Could have sworn I reloaded that. Yeah. Okay. Now. Let's see. It's only because around here it's just filled with bots, AI bots, or some crap like that. So we know we cannot fix the chainsaw with gas cans or anything like that. Of course not. Alright, well, since the gas can is useless, let's burn down this little farm. Burn, burn. I wish they'll bring back the fireflies. Back a couple of seasons. I don't know if they had them last season. No, they took. I know they had them whenever we got to drive around the cars, the battle cars. They had fireflies in a jar that you can collect, but they took them out after that season. I have yet to find some fireflies that you can collect. Wonder, hopefully they'll bring them back one day. Die, die. A couple of bots over there. We have 12 people left in this game. Have 4 kills. The most I ever got in kills per game, well, one of my best was, I think I had 12 kills. And that's just in one game, but that was just going up against a freaking bunch of bots. I landed in the flower field and got a hold of a gun. And most of the kills came from the AI bots. shit. You gotta be behind me, don't you? Wow, double tap. Double tap my ass. What do you think? Still in the wind? I think this one's gonna win. I got that little Sprite plushie too. Scott the dog. Nothing much happened. I died. We're watching. I'm watching to see who wins this game. What the hell was that? Dude, you had him on the run, and now you're just gonna sit there and goof off? He's behind you. Don't take the low ground, take the high ground. Make some sausage. Wonder if he's making it out of brains though. It's gotta be brains. Where Finland and the healing waters, the school district. Haven't landed in my all-time spot in a while. Maybe I'll land there. If they was to take out any gun, they should have took out that minigun. That minigun is BS. I lost a lot of freaking airships because of that gun. Dude, where's my shields I used to? Can't get enough shields. Now I'm just in here trying to get shields. Save my life. No! I am safe here. Nobody can come and get me. Thank you. Unless they have a chainsaw. Forgot about the chainsaw. They can't come and get me. Oh shit, the chainsaw. Go ahead and go all Leatherface on me. There he is. Shield. Scooby Snack. No. Oh yeah, now you got the gold. Spend all that money just for that gun and you end up with the gold gun. Okay, I'll take both of you just for shits and giggles. Should I keep the Scooby Snacks or should I get the shield post? Let's go with that. Out the window. Gotta be very quiet. Nobody knows I'm here. I'll take that. Reload. Reload. It's only OP if you can hit somebody with it. If you can't aim worth the damn, you're gonna suck at it. Oh, I was trying to get myself noticed, but I came across a couple of freaking spots. How am I staying in this circle? tea, I'm out of soda. I need to drink. What the hell's my batteries doing on my controller? Oh, they're still doing pretty good. It's gonna be one of these games where everybody's gonna be here at the last circle. I'm not looking to win this game. What I'm looking to do is try to survive to a very small circle and set off the airstrike. Not much hiding around there either. Crap. 400 meters. Somebody's got a car. Maybe I could get far. Doubt it. Somebody would just freaking blow it up before I can get it. I don't know. That's it. Go for the other car. There you go. The perfect hiding spot. Nobody will look for trash. Oh, it's the white Batmobile. Of course it is. I will take out that button in a heartbeat. Why? Why did you run at me? Why did you think that was a good idea? That was not a good idea. Oh, that's pretty good. I enjoyed that game. I'm not gonna lie, he should have had me there, especially with the knife, because close range, I'm not good at aiming close range, so I got lucky whenever he backed off of me, and I was able to jump back and get a couple of good shots off with the purple shotgun pistol. So I lucked out there. bad landing gear. There we go. Oh. Seriously? How do you fit a chainsaw in an ammo box? Oh, no, no, Fred, what the hell are you doing? I killed Fred. I feel like I should have died. Should have died. What is this? Win 2 crowns and get nothing but trash loot? Come across 2 blue chests and all I got is a freaking chainsaw, a purple SMG, shockwaves, ammo. Woodstake shotgun's pretty good, but it's only like a one chance hit. And once you go up against another player, no. They're not going to stand still. They're going to be like, ah, you can't hit me, you can't hit me, and jump all the fuck around. Oh, look, there's another blue chest over there. Watch it be a shotgun and a small SMG. It's not going to be nothing good. There's going to be a broom in there. I know there's going to be a broom in there. Broom or a freaking chainsaw. How? I was behind the tree. Are you able to shoot through trees now? Oh, haha, you sorry excuse my game. Be right back. I gotta use the restroom. Guy literally just shot me through a freaking tree just to shoot. What is this? Staple win. I don't even know who this is. Decline. Yes. Thank you. Alright, let's go for that yet again. Hiding in the rough. Let's go over here. He's going to be camping out in that freaking building all day, and I'm not going to have that. That's good, I hire you. Oh, look at that, you give ammo. Oh, limited ammo. Nice. gonna be in here or what? Oh, that's a surprise. No stupid shotgun. There we go. Look at that. That's a good shotgun right there. It cost $800. Shouldn't cost that much to buy a freaking what, wrecker regardless. $800. Oh, it's a gold one too. Uh, oh shit. Where are you at? I'm about as blind as a bat. Listen, yeah, there you go. Whenever we stop, you drop the ammo. You don't freaking drop it all the way over there, so I have to go run back for it. Whenever we stop or whenever I stop, you sit there and give me the ammo. Don't. Tell you what, if you do it again, I'm going to unhire you. Half dead means you have half a freaking brain. said I was going to unhire you. I guess I had to unhire you. Due to the fact you dropped ammo while I was still walking. Ooh, there we go. Oh, fuck shit. Oh no, it's a big chicken. It's gonna be one of my targets. It's right there. I'm gonna kill this chicken. I hope Peter's not in here. If Peter's in here, I'll be mad. I don't like Peter. Peter or the chicken, they must go. Hey, you see this? You gonna see that? I'm gonna make sausage out of it. It's gonna be chicken flavored with applewood smoke on it. It's gonna taste good. Oh, he's up top. Okay. Yes, from above. Dude, how many places are you looking? Did you go down? Where are you at? like these game appearances off. Nope. You take it easy. Thanks for dropping in for a little while. Be safe.
Desperation, unable to dodge in midair, but the blonde blocked with his arm while the masked boy was ensnared. With the same motion he'd raised his limb, he pulled back his fist as the chains reeled the ice user in. The fist slammed into his face with enough force to crack his mask. He was sent flying, the chains releasing him as he spiraled through the air before crashing into the ground and rolling to a stop, staring at the sky as half of his mask left his face and clattered on the ground. Just in time to see the chains coming down, their bladed tips poised to spear him. He had just enough time to realize what was coming, but his body refused to respond quickly enough, too dazed by the force of the blow. The chains slammed down in a spray of crimson liquid, and instantly he knew nothing but pain. True awareness gradually returned to the blonde as he stood, heaving as he breathed heavily. An outstretched hand pointed towards Sasuke's killer, his burning gaze honed in on the boy weakly crying out and writhing as he clutched at the blade-tipped chains of chakra embedded in his chest. As his breathing calmed down, the crimson energy began to fade. His ruby orbs faded back to blue. And gradually, his furious gaze gave way to horror. His breath picked up again, this time with a slight shudder as he processed the expanding crimson pool under the masked boy, the 4 chains buried deep in his chest. He took a shaky step back, the chains evaporating and fading away like smoke blown by the wind. The boy's writhing lessened, and he clutched at the red stain at his chest. He was still clinging to life, barely. But it was obvious to all that the wound was fatal. Naruto had killed him, just as he said he would. He tried to force himself to stop trembling, to ignore the cold pit that had opened up in his stomach. Shinobi had been trained for this. There was still danger. He had no idea what was going on with Kakashi, Sakura, and the old man who hired them. He needed to. All he could think of was the boy dying a few yards away from him. He walked forward, as fast as he could. Not very fast, but he recognized that the boy was soon to breathe his last and he wanted to. What? Hear his last words. Just stand there so he wouldn't die alone. He didn't know, but his feet carried him onward. He took in a quiet gasp when he drew close enough to make out the uncovered part of the boy's face. It was the same boy he met days ago gathering herbs. "Ah, it's you. From the forest," Naruto said, his voice faint, shaking slightly. "I suppose this is your win." The boy spoke weakly, dull black eyes looking to Naruto for the second time that day as his arms now limp on his chest. But why?" Naruto asked, and after a moment his voice grew more intense. "Why someone like you working for scum like Zabuza? Why'd you kill Sasuke?" "Because he is important to me," the masked boy, whose name Naruto realized he didn't even know, said as he looked to the sky. "When I was alone, when no one acknowledged my existence, he took me in. For that, I owe him everything." He looked to him once more, his voice growing weaker with every word. "Do you know what it's like to be truly alone, to live in complete solitude?" The look on his face gave him the answer.
It is.
"I see." And then his
What if Naruto rebuilt the Uzumaki clan Part 1? It's a what if Naruto fan flick. So, yeah. That's what I'm listening to. You want me to stop or can I continue on listening to it? Oh, okay.
His eyes closed, and his breathing stilled. Zabuza could sense it. Kakashi had used a jutsu, and for that he chided him. For all the Sharingan wielder's renown, he was helpless here in his midst. Just like so many others. They couldn't match Zabuza's skill in the art of silent killing. Not even his former compatriots in the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist could. Here, where sight was useless, where he could attack without a sound and detect even the faintest of movement, none could match him. None could escape his blade. "I think you're right, Kakashi. It's time I ended this." And that's when he sensed it. Something moving towards the ground, drowning out all the other faint sounds. The ground beneath him cracked, and then shattered, revealing a dog. It grasped at his foot with its jaws. A quick movement of his leg was all he needed to avoid it. He wasn't so fortunate when another followed, however, and its teeth bit into his shin. He cried out in pain, before more hounds of various species, including an enormous bulldog, tore their way out of the ground around him, their howls filling the air. He struggled, to no avail, as he found himself completely pinned. His legs each had two dogs hanging onto them, his right arm had a single canine holding it in place, and the bulldog had bit into his shoulder, its huge paws holding his arm in place. Hey, the tables had turned. That's what happens when you wander with your eyes closed. Kakashi began as the mist began to clear, allowing them to see each other as he rose to his feet. That was a summoning jutsu. I was calling forth my ninja hounds. Kakashi's mixed eyes met his. When you attacked me, I let you get past my guard. I wanted you to cut me. It's the smell of my blood on your blade that led them to you. Falling into my trap, you disappoint me, Zabuza. Of course, he had to throw his words back at him. Kakashi put a hand to his face, right beside his coal eye. The mist has cleared. Know what I see. Your future is death. Talk, do you mean to talk me to death? In a way, Kakashi replied. Right now my hounds are just playing, but one word from me and they'll tear you apart. But, as I said, we're both busy people. I need to get to my students. It's time I ended this. But it won't be with a stolen jutsu. For this, I'll use my own technique. And with that, he ran through three hand signs. Reikiri. A circle of azure chakra rose around him, lightning flying from it to an orb of pure chakra and electricity in his grasp. Wah. His chakra's so strong it's visible. I won't let you sacrifice Tazuna for the sake of your own goals. Kakashi declared. The bridge he seeks to build is the only hope of this country. Sacrificing so many others to further your ambitions. He glared at him now, disapproval clear on the exposed portion of his face.
I like both
That's not the way
Star
of the
Trek
shinobi.
and Star Wars.
Zabuza recovered from the shock of seeing so powerful a technique. Really, what was even the point of that? At this point, he could just throw a kunai into his jugular and he wouldn't be able to do anything. Flashy bastard just wants to show off. Well, if he wanted to waste that much chakra, fine by him. If he could get out of this, that would be to his advantage. I don't give a damn about their petty little lives, Zabuza responded, his voice determined as if he wasn't staring down certain death.
Answer.
I've got my own dreams. And I will make them a reality. Kakashi continued to stare, the orb of light crackling in his hand. I'll give you one last chance. Surrender. Never. So be it. Kakashi charged forward. The swordsman of the mist did all he could, hoped that Haku would come to his side as always. But there was nothing he could do. And help never came. Pain erupted through his chest as the blade of lightning pierced him, running him clear through as easily as any metal sword. He coughed, and blood dyed the wrapping masking his face. Damn. Guess Kakashi was right this time. Naruto had stepped away from the masked boy's body, eyes looking this way and that as he tried to gain his bearings. It was useless. This fog was so thick he might as well be stumbling around in complete darkness. And with all the moving around in the fight, he had no idea if he was going towards the others or the rails or even the edge of the bridge. Damn it. I can't tell east from west in this stupid fog. Never mind that he had trouble with that anyway. I have to find everyone and... It was just then that the mist began to lighten up. Vague shapes began to form as it faded away by the moment. The mist is clearing, and then he saw two shapes, definitely human, standing inches apart in the fog. There. He ran towards them as his vision became sharper, and then he stopped. Kakashi was standing across from Zabuza, who was being held down by dogs of various shapes and sizes. But they didn't have to. Not when Kakashi's hand had torn clean through Zabuza's chest. The man was unmoving, blood splatters littering the ground in front of and behind him. His eyes were wide and sightless, looking blankly at Kakashi's face. The hounds released their prey, sitting obediently as Kakashi turned, kneeling as he moved to slide Zabuza's body off of his arm. He laid him onto the ground and slid his hands over his eyes, last rites for a fallen foe regardless of his opinion of the man. Kakashi-sensei, Naruto called out as he ran over, and he saw the man look towards him. Naruto. It's over on your end too. Naruto stopped and his face twisted as he looked away. Kakashi took in the complicated expression on his face and seemed to have a good guess of how the battle had ended. I see. Naruto. It was then a familiar voice rang out. One that Naruto had dreaded hearing. Sakura. He looked over to see the pink-haired girl waving at him, a happy smile on her face that the blonde knew wouldn't last. Are you okay? Where's Sasuke? Naruto just looked away, not able to force himself to say the words to her. Kakashi remained stoic as he took in Naruto's response, nearly closing his eye for a moment as he slid his forehead protector back over his Sharingan eye. It was something he'd learned to do through the countless losses he'd endured through his years as a shinobi. This one though, it was never easy to lose a comrade, no matter how well one might learn to handle it, but it was worse when it was your student. He could already guess what Sakura's reaction was. He rose from his crouched position, sparing Zabuza's body a single glance. That could be dealt with later. He half turned to look at the bridge builder and Sakura, who was starting to tremble with a look of growing horror on her face. Come on, it looks like the fighting's over. And with that he walked towards Naruto, who stood there looking at the ground, his loyal ninja hounds following behind. He was grateful to Pakun for remaining silent. When he reached the blonde, he put a hand on his shoulder. Those blue eyes turned to him, and he gave him a reassuring squeeze before gesturing for him to follow. He seemed reluctant, and he could imagine why, but he started to turn all the same. As they walked through the clearing mist, the first sight they came upon was the body of the masked boy. There were more pressing matters, so the Jonin only spared the corpse a cursory glance. It wasn't what he expected. He had little experience with the power he had sensed from Naruto, but he had expected blunt force trauma or claws to be the cause of death, not impalement. And then they came to Sasuke lying on his back, eyes closed and needles dug deep into his neck and various places on his body. Tazuna looked away. Sakura fell to her knees. She reached for his face, likely wanting to confirm that it wasn't just a trick like during the bell test. He's cold, she noted quietly. This isn't an illusion. You can cry, Sakura. I won't think less of you. Kakashi said, and she turned a wavering green eye towards him. He could see it shimmering slightly. I know what the rules say. Feelings are a weakness. Shinobi aren't supposed to pursue their own goals, we're meant to be tools.
I'll get that
But despite that, we're still human. At that, the floodgates opened, and Sakura fell over Sasuke as she sobbed out his name. He could hear Naruto's breathing catch beside him. Well, what do we have here? An oily voice rang out from the edge of the bridge. All save Sakura turned to see a short man in sunglasses, dressed in an expensive suit and a cane. He was smirking, amusement clear as he beheld them in the now almost completely faded mist. Behind him were dozens of men. Kakashi could immediately tell they were nothing more than thugs, likely only barely versed in chakra if at all.
I just killed the Undertaker.
So this is... Hey, well, what do you know? Those two went and bid it before we even got here. Gato observed with a slight tile of the head. I guess I owe you a bit of gratitude. I was going to have them both killed after they ran themselves nice and ragged fighting you, but you went and took care of that part for me. So much for the hidden demon in the mist. The men behind him all laughed at him, mocking the dead man. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. Double dealing's a common tactic for swine like you. Kakashi coolly stated, his hounds beginning to growl at his side. Ah, don't be like that. It's just good business. Gato replied, seemingly finding his disapproval funny if anything. Speaking of which, these guys may be cheap thugs but they do cost something, so if you could take a few of them out before they kill you I'd be much obliged. It said something about what utter scum these people were that not a single one of them had a problem with that. And clearly, their boss had to have something of a sadistic streak, as if they hadn't seen enough evidence of that already. After all, he could have just sent them here with orders to kill them. He had no reason to come out himself beyond just wanting to see them die. Walking onto a battlefield with only untrained thugs to protect you. Not smart. Naruto. Kakashi spoke quietly as he glanced at the blonde. He looked up at him, anger clear on his face, wearing his emotions on his sleeve as always. The hounds were growling, baring their teeth. I don't have much chakra left. Use the shadow clone jutsu to cover me. Naruto just nodded and Kakashi stepped forward. Well, I'm actually the one who should be thanking you, Gato. The copy ninja began to the suddenly confused gangster. He didn't bother uncovering his eye. He wouldn't need it for trash like this. I'm in a bad mood right now. And you've given me the opportunity to go on a rampage. And with that he drew two kunai and charged forward. He heard the burst of smoke that accompanied the shadow clone jutsu go off behind him, and the roars and footfalls of his hounds as they followed. Geitu's confident face immediately gave way to terror and he turned and ran into the crowd of muscle he'd hired like the coward people like him typically were. What are you waiting for? Kill them. Kakashi held his blades before his chest as he saw the various thugs ready their weapons, confident that their numbers would win the day. They were very quickly disabused of that notion. But not by Kakashi. For a moment, Kakashi's sole visible eye widened as a chain made of pale yellow energy shot past him, slamming into a vast swath of the thugs, tossing them aside like Ryo coins.
Nice.
Many were left sprawling on the ground. Some were swept over the railings. He heard them cry out and then splash into the water below. What? But that's... Suddenly the masked boy's wounds made sense, he noted in the back of his mind as he joined the fray. The mercenaries quickly learned the difference between self-taught street fighters who didn't know the transformation technique from substitution and a veteran Jonin who'd fought in wars and earned a bounty of 50 million Ryo. What followed could only be described as a massacre. He ducked under sword swipe, sidestepped spear thrusts, jumped over attempts to sweep his feet out from under him, each time striking his attacker with a kick to the head if they were lucky. A slash from his kunai if they weren't. Another spear user tried to stab him in the back. In one fluid motion, he spun on his heel, twisting just enough for the weapon to pass within an inch of his back, stabbed the poor merc in the neck while still halfway through his turn, finishing the movement with a kick that sent the man flying into another thug and continued to push on in the direction their boss had fled in, ducking under a blow from a pair of spiked knuckles from his right and slashing the attacker across his chest as he continued. All the while the dogs howled as they fought behind him, too fast for the attackers. Darting in and tearing out throats and dodging any blow thrown their way. One of the mercs noticed Pakun and tried to kick him out of the way. Big mistake. The little dog bit the man's leg and dragged him to the ground, where one of his combat hounds finished him off. Meanwhile, Naruto's clones fought with their fists. While not particularly skilled in taijutsu, any genin worth his salt would make short work of random fighters like this. One clone dodged a blow from a particularly large mercenary before another launched himself at its stomach. As he ducked forward, the wind knocked out of him, another leapt up and punched him in the face, knocking him out cold. And that said nothing of the many that were swept aside by the chains. Close enough now. Time to end this. Charging his kunai with lightning, a far less costly technique than his raikiri, he mentally kicked himself for using that. He could have done this himself if he hadn't. Next time, he wouldn't try to be flashy. He let the weapon fly. The enhanced weapon tore through the mercenaries and their weapons, literally. Cut through them like butter. Carving a trail that led straight to Geitu, who let out a startled cry and took a step back as the weapon was embedded at his feet. Making a tiger seal, Kakashi vanished in a burst of speed and reappeared at the feet of the wannabe tyrant. He had just enough time to scream before he was slashed from groin to neck with a single upward motion. He made a strangled cry as he was driven back by the force of the blow and the instinct to get away, falling over the edge of the bridge, leaving a splash and a short trail of blood. All motion slowed to a halt as the mercenaries recognized that their meal ticket had just been lost. Kakashi slowly turned to the thugs, who were not nearly as confident to say the least. Sasuke hadn't expected to wake up. When he'd felt the pain from his injuries fade, felt his body grow numb as his consciousness began to dim, he'd been sure that was the end. So were it not for how groggy he was at the moment, he would have been very surprised as he began to regain awareness. Did he hear something? A voice. Am I dead? The sound was becoming clearer by the second. It was sobbing. Someone was crying his name. The voice was familiar. Wait, wasn't that Sakura? Feeling was beginning to return to him. Pain. His entire body was sore and growing worse as he became less lethargic. There was a weight on his chest. And it was only adding to the discomfort. His body was slow to respond to his command, but gradually his eye began to open and Sakura was crying over him. Could I be Sakura? It's hard to breathe with you on top of me. He finally managed to say. With a startled sound, Sakura got up and looked to his face, shocked to see his eyes open and looking at her. After a moment, She began to cry harder, and with a now relieved cry of his name wrapped her arms around his neck and began sobbing into his shoulder. That only made things worse. A sharp throbbing pain shot out from where she had pushed at the needles. "Sakura, that hurts." "Oh, sorry," she replied as she pulled away. His body was stiff and it felt like he was moving through water, but he managed to pull himself up to sit before shifting onto his knees, refusing to stay down when he didn't know the situation. Well, Sakura was fine. That was a relief. As was Tazuna, so clearly they hadn't lost, that was good. But where were Naruto and Kakashi? Did Naruto fare alright against their masked foe? Probably not, considering they'd been at a disadvantage even together. "Stop moving, you'll only make it worse," Sakura said, trying to calm him down, but she was ignored. "Is Naruto alright? And what happened to that masked kid?" "Naruto's fine," Sakura said, now looking uncertain. "But that masked kid, he's dead, and so is Zabuza." Sasuke's eyes shot open as shock rolled through his system, instantly returning him to full awareness. "Dead? How? Did Naruto do it?" I think so," Sakura answered. "He came to us after Kakashi defeated Zabuza. By the time we got here it was over already." At that, Sasuke began to wildly look around, taking in his surroundings. There was Naruto and a few of his clones, standing on one side of a horde of what seemed to be street thugs with a few of them mixed in. Where did they come from? There was a path carved through them, at the end of which stood Kakashi. Sasuke quickly assumed he'd gone for their leader, considering that the fighting appeared to have stopped. He took in the damage to the bridge, the now clear air free of the mist. And then laid eyes on the masked boy. Half his face exposed and deep stab wounds in his chest, his shirt stained in a red that pooled around his body. But how? After giving him a moment to process, Sakura smiled at him, clasping her hands together in front of her. "You're amazing though, Sasuke. I knew you'd pull through. You must have protected your vital spots even as you were going down." "No," Sasuke denied as he quickly put the pieces together. "It was him. He did the same thing to me he did to Zabuza. From the very start he..." "Naruto," Sakura called out, and Sasuke turned his gaze back to the blonde. "Look, Sasuke's okay." He could see Naruto tearing up from here. He gave him a silent wave. What do we do?" one of the thugs asked the others. "These guys just killed our meal ticket."
Damn.
Another snarled. "I don't want to mess with
Got
these
killed by the
shinobi.
Joker.
I say we cut out
Oh, well.
losses and get the hell out of here." "What are you talking about? Most of them are kids." It was then that an arrow fell at the front of the horde. That drew everyone's attention to the opposite side of the bridge. The shinobi's eyes widened. The thugs'
I win
collective
some, I
jaws
lose
dropped.
some.
Every villager from Wave was standing together, armed with whatever they could find to use as weapons. Shovels, axes, pickaxes, hoes, rakes. They brandished their makeshift weapons with looks of determination. And leading them was Inari, armed with a crossbow. "Don't even think about it. Or you'll have all of us to deal with," one of the men shouted, and was met with a chorus of agreement and battle cries from his fellow villagers. "Inari," Naruto shouted. "Hey, a hero shows up at the last second, right?" Inari answered with a smile. "Ah, he must have said something that got through to the kid. Credit where it was due, that was nicely done on Naruto's part." "So guys," Kakashi said, and all the thugs shivered as they turned to the copy ninja. After a pause, he gave them one of those eye smiles of his. "Run." And they obeyed. And thus, the land of waves was saved. But Sasuke didn't feel much of a sense of accomplishment in it. Oh, he was happy for the people of Wave. You'd have to be heartless not to be. After who knows how many years of misery, they finally had a brighter future ahead of them. Some part of him felt proud about playing a part in that. But it was overshadowed by the part that was frustrated by the fact that Naruto, the dead last, beat someone he couldn't. It was another reminder of the wall that lies in front of him. Of how far he had to go to achieve his ambition. Naruto smiled as he watched the people of Wave let out a cheer while the mercs practically fell over themselves trying to get away. Though anyone who knew him would know right away his reaction was far more subdued than was normal for him. Normally he'd be right there with them, but now that the danger had passed, his mind went back to the masked boy. His eyes turned back to the body lying there in the middle of the bridge. He flinched as he remembered coming to his senses and realizing what he'd done. And it was worse now. He'd never actually meant to kill them. He'd probably been planning to fool Zabuza with that trick so that he wouldn't. And he'd died for it himself. Why'd it turn out that way? Why would someone like that devote himself to someone like Zabuza? He knew why. He didn't know the boy's circumstances, but he knew what it was like to be completely alone. To just want someone, anyone, to acknowledge him. And Zabuza had, and for that, he'd do anything for him. He knew because he felt the same. For Old Man Hokage, for Iruka, and for his team. He winced as he realized he didn't even know the boy's name. Chances are the only one who had was Zabuza. That felt wrong. He may have been an enemy, but he was a good guy. He was kind-hearted, and he fought out of love for his master. They probably could have been friends, if things had been different. He deserved to be remembered, and they didn't even have a name to put to his face. He felt a hand on his shoulder and looked up to see his sensei standing there. After a moment, he made a gesture toward the land of waves with his head. Come on, we need to talk. They walked over to Sasuke and Sakura, and he gestured for them to follow. And so Team 7 walked back across the bridge. Inari noticed and started to call out, but Tazuna put a hand on his shoulder, having guessed what was up. They silently made their way back to the land and off the beaten path, into the forest. He led them away from prying eyes until he found a fallen tree. Kakashi took in their surroundings and nodded to himself. He then turned back to his team, his only visible eye wandering over them.
Velma,
Sasuke looked like his usual aloof self. Naruto noticed Sakura was looking his way with concern. Sit, now. They obeyed, sitting down on the floor while he took a seat on the tree. He sighed. All right, I'm sure you all know what we're going to start with, he said before focusing on the blonde. Naruto, what you're feeling right now is normal. Taking a life for the first time is never an easy thing. But it's a reality of life as a shinobi. He looked over to Sakura and Sasuke. But then, she probably needed to hear this more than him. Make no mistake, you two will go through the same eventually. Sakura flinched. Sasuke didn't react, like always. Does it get easier? Naruto asked. Do you see me letting what I did back on the bridge get to me? Kakashi replied, and that answered that question. The man sighed, closing his eyes. My first kill was when the world was nearing the Third Shinobi World War. Tensions were high, missions a lot more dangerous. We needed bodies in the field, and we couldn't afford to slowly introduce genin to things the way we can in times of relative peace. I had to pick myself up immediately, or I wouldn't be here now. It does get easier. There will come a time when killing those you know are scum won't even faze you. The important things are being able to recognize when it's necessary. Every shinobi has their own opinion on that. That and how far we stick to the tenets of being tools, vs our nature as humans. That, and making sure you never take any sort of pleasure in it. Zabuza was far from the worst example of what those who do become. Naruto's expression twisted at that, a reaction mirrored by Sakura beside him. Sasuke's only slightly narrowed his eyes in response. Kakashi let all that sink in before he continued. That said, killing someone like that boy should never be easy. He looked at Naruto once again. I imagine you only felt worse when you realized that Sasuke was still alive. The blonde flinched, and that was all the answer his team needed. Take however long you need to come to terms with what happened. I'm here to talk if you need it, and I'm sure your teammates won't shy away if you feel the need to lean on them. There was a pause before Sakura spoke up. Naruto. It's okay. She started, struggling to find what to say. Even if he was faking, you thought he'd killed Sasuke. You couldn't have known otherwise. I'd have done the same thing. She then slumped forward. I mean, if I could. And I managed to stop crying. Sakura. There was a moment of silence before Sasuke broke it. How? He began, drawing their attention back to him. He was giving Naruto a hard look, frustration clear in his expression. How exactly did you beat that guy? Naruto grimaced before looking back to the ground, Sakura looking back and forth between her teammates, wanting to say something but not sure what. I'm not really sure what happened. He admitted. Just, when I thought he'd killed you I just wanted him to pay. His fists clenched, saying the last word through gritted teeth. Then, these chains burst from me and broke all the mirrors. Sasuke's eyes narrowed. Chains?
Oh!
Huh, what are you talking about? Sakura asked. Ah, of course. He used them against the thugs too, but you wouldn't have noticed. Sasuke was still out cold and Sakura was preoccupied. Kakashi spoke up. If you could demonstrate. Naruto made an uncertain sound. Now that the battle was over, thinking of those chains reminded him of. Well, not like he could just stop using them, right? He needed to get stronger. Strong enough that he'd never have to go through watching a teammate die again.
Take it easy and be safe
or at
out
least
there.
say he did all he could to avoid that. This whole thing proved it to him. Closing his eyes, he called upon that power once again. After the first time he called on them back on the bridge, it was like something had just snapped into place. He just knew how to summon them forth. A pale yellow chain grew from his back, looping over his shoulder, flying forward and burying its pointed tip in the ground. What the hell? Sakura cried in shock, while Sasuke looked on with interest. Naruto looked up at his sensei. Do you know anything about these things, Kakashi-sensei? Indeed I do, Kakashi replied with a nod. While not officially the case, I suppose you could call this the Uzumaki clan's Kekkei Genkai. What? There's an Uzumaki clan, Naruto exclaimed in shock. Why was this the first he was hearing about this? Why was he by himself if he had had they been destroyed, like Sasuke's clan? Was that why he'd never even heard of them around Konoha? Or, did they reject him because of the Kyuubi? Naruto's from a clan. Sakura seemed just as shocked as he did. Even Sasuke seemed mildly surprised. Naruto has a Kekkei Genkai. Why wait, what's a Kekkei Genkai? Naruto asked. Seriously? Sakura commented with a frown. Kakashi sighed. I see we have more than just your skills to polish up. Luckily, I have an idea about that, but that's for later. A Kekkei Genkai is, well, the name says it all really. It's a unique ability tied to a certain bloodline, like the Sharingan. Or likely that boy's ice jutsu. They're usually far more powerful most than standard techniques. Those chains aren't technically considered Kekkei Genkai, probably because some other techniques produce similar effects, but they mostly fit the bill. They're superior to the other chakra chain techniques I know of and instinctual for those of the clan lucky enough to have the potential for them. Naruto's nodded rapidly, a determined look on his face. But then, he looked vaguely uncertain. Kakashi-sensei. He began. If you know that much about them, do you know anyone who has them? The blonde asked hopefully. Kakashi closed his eye and took a deep breath. I did. He then met Naruto's gaze. Your mother, Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto stared in disbelief, absently noting Sakura looking back and forth between him and their sensei beside him. Part of him was elated, to finally hear about his parents. But part of him was screaming, why hadn't Kakashi mentioned that before? Sensing what the blonde was about to say, Kakashi raised his hand in a stop gesture. I know what you're going to ask, but please understand. Downplayed things during the bell test, when I told you my best friend's name was written on that memorial. Of all the people I've held dear to me, only one has survived through the years. And whatever irritation Naruto felt at Kakashi for waiting this long to tell him that he knew his mother withered away. He and Sakura looked at the man in understanding. Sasuke simply looked down solemnly, and Naruto got the feeling he sympathized. Talking about the past is painful for me. Don't expect me to bring it up unless I have a point to make. There was silence for a few moments before Naruto finally couldn't help himself. What was she like? He asked, far more subdued than usual. Well, from what I know, she was a lot like you in her childhood. Naruto's eyes widened at that. Kakashi crossed his arms and looked to the sky. But, I only have second-hand knowledge on that front. When I knew her, she was almost always cheerful. And kind. Courageous. Though, she did have a bit of a temper. There was a fond look in his eye his students had never seen before as he thought back on happier times. She was known as a great beauty throughout the village. She had long red hair, a characteristic of the Uzumaki clan. He tilted his head to the side as he looked at the blonde. You may not have gotten the clan's look from her, but you have her eyes. Naruto's eyes grew misty. He sniffled a bit, but there was a genuine smile on his face as he tried to imagine the woman his sensei was describing. He paused for a moment, before glancing at Sasuke. She was actually close friends with Sasuke's mother, Makoto. Naruto blinked in shock, turning watery eyes towards the Uchiha, who had mirrored the action. They had hoped you two would be as good friends as they were, from what Makoto told me. You may not remember it, you were too young, but things were pretty hectic in the wake of the Kyuubi attack for the Uchiha clan and things only went downhill as the years passed. It kept her from seeing you, but that wasn't the case in the earlier days. I ran into her a few times, checking up on you when you were a baby. There was silence for a moment as Naruto thought of all he'd learned about his mother. It was eventually broken by Sakura, whose eyes darted back to Naruto a few times as she realized something. Kakashi-sensei. From what you just said. Did she? The white-haired man made a brief sound of agreement. She died in the Kyuubi attack. Naruto flinched at those words. She was badly wounded near the start. But a testament to how powerful those chains are once fully mastered, she was able to restrain the Kyuubi during the final moments of the battle. Naruto stared at Kakashi wide-eyed, astonished at the idea that she could hold it down after all that he'd heard of the Kyuubi's power, from what he felt in the little sliver he'd accessed not too long ago. Their final form has the power to seal the chakra of anything they ensnare, you see. Combine that with their durability, and there isn't much that can escape them. My mom was pretty amazing, huh? Naruto choked up a little as the words left him. She was. That night, after all the festivities ceased and everyone went to bed, Sakura found herself staring at the ceiling with her mind in turmoil. Useless. She'd been useless on that bridge. Guarding Tazuna. Who was she kidding? She wouldn't have lasted 2 seconds against Zabuza or that masked boy. Even before that, Naruto and Sasuke had managed to work together to free Kakashi during their first round against the rogue ninja. And what had she done? Nothing. Zip. They were supposed to be a team. They were meant to have each other's back and stand together, but it all fell on those two and their sensei. And look at what happened. Sasuke almost died, and Naruto had been hurt. Not physically, but it was clear that he was still reeling from killing their opponent. Her parents had warned her of that, one of the few times they'd really talked about life as a shinobi. Of how hard it would hit you despite all the academy did to prepare you for it. Thinking of Naruto reminded her of all their interactions up until this point, and she couldn't help but cringe. Sure, the blonde was annoying and he could be an idiot at times, but enough so to justify how often she berated or hit him. No, not even close. She remembered what her sensei had told her, did the math, and realized he must have been around their age during the last war. That had brought her to a realization, out of her whole team, she was the only one to have had a happy and relatively stable childhood. Naruto hadn't had parents to teach him, to welcome him back and offer advice and encouragement. Who would be able to support him through what he was feeling now? She remembered the look on his face as Kakashi had described his mother. How could she have been so flippant about that? How could she not have realized how much growing up alone like that must hurt? She grimaced as she recalled her words to Sasuke way back before the bell test. When she said how lucky he was to not have parents, that was why he could be so selfish. The only saving grace she could see was that she hadn't been stupid enough to say that to his face. Wait. Her eyes shot open as she sat up, quick as a blur. Oh God, she'd said that to Sasuke. The Uchiha incident. She'd thoughtlessly said that to someone who'd seen his entire family murdered. She fell back onto the bed and stared dully at the ceiling. No wonder he'd been so mad at her that day. She was a horrible person, wasn't she? Team 7 was silent as they neared the village gates. After the bridge had been completed, the entire village had come out to see them off. After a tearful goodbye between Naruto and Inari, they'd been on their way. They walked forward with their heads held high, knowing the nation had a chance for a brighter future now, thanks to them. For the most part, Naruto had mostly returned to his usual self over the few weeks it had taken them to finish the bridge. A bit quieter. There were still times when dreams of the masked boy interrupted his sleep. But with time and the support of his sensei and occasionally Sakura, he had taken great strides to move on. He'd run through the events on the bridge many a time in his head, wondering if things could have gone differently. His sensei's words and Sakura's reassurances had helped, but he still couldn't help but wonder how things would have turned out if he hadn't walked into that dome of ice mirrors. If maybe he'd tried to take the masked boy out of the fight with that first unseen blow. But then, how would he have reacted if he'd lived? Zabuza wouldn't have stopped. Unless Gato decided to show himself before they killed him, they would have been forced into a battle to the death. When he thought about how he felt when he believed that Sasuke died, he had to wonder how would the masked boy have reacted if they'd killed Zabuza while he was still alive. He liked to think things would have worked out, but there were a lot of ways things could have gone wrong. There was something else Kakashi had told him since that day. Cliché as it sounds, there's no point dwelling on what-ifs. And that was true. Thinking about all the ways it could have gone differently wouldn't change that the masked boy was dead, buried back there in Wave. Kakashi had sealed Zabuza's body into a scroll. Apparently, that was the normal thing to do with rogue ninja. They tended to have pretty big bounties on their heads, which made sense between betraying their village and whatever crimes they committed to make a living afterward. Though Kakashi had mentioned that any shinobi who made a name for themselves would probably wind up with a bounty too. That was kinda cool. It was like a measure of your awesomeness. Not really worth it though, when it came with people looking to cash in. Sakura meanwhile had been quiet and she wouldn't talk about why. She kept to herself, throwing glances to him and Sasuke every once in a while, and seemed unsure of herself. It sucked, seeing the usually confident girl like that, but she just wouldn't open up, not to him or Kakashi. She'd say something supportive to her fellow genin every once in a while, but that was that. She hadn't even fawned over Sasuke since that day on the bridge. He'd had to check to see if the sky was falling when he realized that. And Sasuke. Well, Sasuke had been himself, the textbook example of brooding. The three genin couldn't help but feel somewhat relieved home was in sight, but Naruto noticed Kakashi didn't seem as relaxed. While he mostly seemed his usual cool self, he hadn't once taken out that stupid book of his, and he noticed the man's eye was slightly tense. As they approached the gate, the guard looked up and greeted them. "Hey, welcome back." He frowned, his face twisting slightly as he took in the genin. "Tough mission. It wasn't a failure, was it?" "Oh no, nothing like that," Kakashi replied before rubbing the back of his head and looking away. "It's a long story. Let's just say Lord Hokage's going to rake me over the coals and leave it at that." That got Naruto's attention. Why would the old man be mad? They managed, hadn't they? Not exactly the way he'd have wanted, but they pulled it off. He'd have to be impressed that they saved the nation, right? Ouch. The guard gave him a look of sympathy. Well, best not put it off. And with that, they all entered the village and made their way down the road to the administration building. They walked up the familiar corridors and soon found themselves at the Hokage's office. They knocked on the door to the office and got the okay to enter. "Ah, welcome back Team 7. Hiruzen greeted from his desk with a nod as the four walked in, a hand on his pipe. He frowned slightly when he took in the three genin. Naruto didn't have his usual smile. He couldn't grin as he usually could, knowing what they'd be discussing, and his eyes were open. Beside him, he noticed Sakura was looking as sullen as she always had for the past few weeks. "I take it there were complications." "That's one way to put it." Kakashi began with a sigh. He then looked to the Hokage, slightly tense as if he was expecting a blow. "There were some things the client kept from us and some unexpected developments. Had we known everything, the mission would have been classified as A rank in difficulty." "Was this revealed to you early on, or once you reached the land of waves?" Hiruzen frowned deeply. "Early on." Hiruzen's eyes hardened as he stared at Kakashi. "And am I to understand that you continued the mission anyway?" "That's correct, Lord Hokage." He set his pipe down and leaned forward, clasping his hands before him. "I'm going to need a full explanation." And so Team 7 gave him a full report on everything that happened. The third Hokage was silent for most of the explanation, occasionally asking for clarification on some details, but otherwise simply listened. When it was over, he clasped his hands before him and closed his eyes as he contemplated all that he had just heard. Finally, he looked up. "I'm going to ask that you all remain silent until I'm finished speaking." The third god of shinobi began. He looked to the genin with approval. "First, let me commend the three of you for the success of this mission. Despite facing danger far beyond what you had any right to be prepared for at this point in your career, you pushed on for the sake of the client and his people. In doing so, you saved an impoverished nation from a dark fate and granted them new hope. Not only that, but you rekindled the wills of its downtrodden people. For this, you should be proud, as I am to call you shinobi of this village. Naruto smiled widely at those words, just as the blonde always had. Sasuke has a small smirk, which was about the most one could get from him. Sakura's expression, on the other hand, hadn't changed. Then the Hokage's face hardened once again as his gaze turned towards their sensei. However, Kakashi met his eyes unflinchingly. It should never have come down to you in the first place. The genin were clearly surprised, but Hiruzen kept going. Kakashi, it is your job as their Jonin leader to not only protect and guide them, but to recognize when they're in over their heads and pull them back. You should have returned to the village the moment it became clear that this mission was beyond your students' current capabilities, regardless of their feelings on the matter. At least when they're still this early in their careers. If you had already reached wave by the time you became aware of the true scope of the mission, if it was too late to turn back without condemning their nation, that would be one thing. While Tezuna's reasoning is understandable, given the circumstances I would not have been against working out a long-term payment plan or agreeing to later reimbursement. And then we could have sent a proper escort with him. Naruto and Sakura's jaws dropped while Sasuke frowned. They hadn't even thought of that. Then again, his teammates had probably been as happy to take a mission that wasn't painting fences or tending lawns as he was. And who knows how things would have turned out if anyone else had gone. Kakashi was a pretty big deal among Jonin, wasn't he? What if whoever they sent instead wasn't a match for Zabuza? No, besides what happened with the ice user, Naruto couldn't say he had any regrets about taking the mission. Still, he could see the Hokage's point. The third Hokage's eyes narrowed. Need I point out that had this ice wielder been more like his master, or if Zabuza had more Chunin-level ninja at his disposal, then this would have ended in disaster. Kakashi closed his eye. No, I trusted my students, but I understood the danger after my first battle with Zabuza. Hiruzen closed his eyes and sat for a moment in silent thought. When he opened them once more, he stared at Kakashi. I won't punish you beyond this reprimand. But understand that you are on thin ice. The facts that, first and foremost, your genin have returned unharmed, the mission was a success, and that prior to your encounter with Zabuza after reaching the Land of Waves the mission appeared to be B rank are somewhat mitigating factors. Nevertheless, I don't want to see this again until your students are ready for it. Understood, Kakashi answered with a nod. The Hokage sighed and sat back in his chair, picking up his pipe and taking a deep breath before blowing out a cloud of smoke. He then looked to the blonde. Naruto, you have been made aware of the origins of those chains. Yeah, Kakashi-sensei told me. Then, the blonde frowned and raised a fist. Hey, why did no one tell me I came from a clan before? Well, I'm glad to see you're still high-spirited. The third noted before closing his eyes. The Uzumaki clan is a sore subject for Konoha. You see, the Uzumaki clan were actually distant relatives of one of the founding clans of this village, the Senju clan. That got exclamations of shock from Naruto and Sakura, while even Sasuke seemed surprised to hear that. The blonde stepped closer, eager to hear more. The Uzumaki were a powerful clan, one that retained strong relations with their cousins the Senju. They ultimately formed their own village, Uzushiogakure, our staunchest allies. They were known for their mastery of the art of sealing jutsu and also for the longevity that those of the village, especially the Uzumaki, possessed. Indeed, they were the greatest masters of sealing jutsu in all the continent, and that made their village strong despite its small size. Naruto excitedly ate up all the information given to him. His hands were clenched into fists before him in eagerness as he listened to how amazing his family was. And his clan was related to the Senju. He might not have paid a lot of attention in class. Not to mention how often he was put out of the room for whatever reason they could think of before Iruka came and warmed up to him, but even he knew they were known as the strongest clan there was. And it meant he was related to the first and second Hokages. Distantly, but still, awesome. But it was here that the story took a dark turn, and the Hokage solemnly closed his eyes. But their power made them a potential threat to many. More so thanks to their close alliance with us. During a previous war, while we were preoccupied facing our own enemies, Kumo and I will launch a surprise attack on Uzushio. His gaze turned to the ceiling, appearing lost in memories. Attacking seal masters on their own ground are usually folly. Uzushio's forces gave better than they got. But in the end, there were just too many. The village was destroyed and the few survivors of its leading clan scattered to the winds. You'll find them every once in a while, here and there. He looked back to the genin, taking in the dejected look on Naruto's face. The fact that we failed to protect such treasured friends, the blood of one of our founding clans, is held as a dark mark on the history of our village. And Naruto quickly deflated upon hearing the fate of his clan. Sakura looked at him in sympathy while Sasuke gazed in thought of what he'd learned. After a few moments of silence, he asked, "So, there are still other Uzumaki out there? And how did my mom come to our village if she was from Uzushio?" The third Hokage shook his head. "I'm sorry, Naruto. It's unlikely you will encounter any others of your clan. We have not heard of any other Uzumaki in a long time. One of my students told me of one he found during the Second Shinobi World War, but he chose to remain where Jiraiya found him, and we have since had word of his death. As for your mother, she was transferred to our village as part of an agreement, shortly before Uzushio's destruction." After a pause to let that reality sink in, Hiruzen picked up his account of the fallen clan. "While we may not speak of the village or the clan for the shame associated with our failure, there are still signs of the solidarity we once had with them. The red spiral I'm sure you've noticed on the back of our flak jackets and even some of our other attire like your own jacket is the symbol of the clan and Uzushio." Naruto's eyes widened. The symbol of his family had been staring at him in the face for all these years. The Uzumaki did not give their village their symbol out of vanity, mind you. It was because it rested on a small island off the western coast of the Land of Fire, the Land of Whirlpools, which fell along with the village. As the name suggests, the nation was surrounded by whirlpools, an effective natural defense. Though not effective enough to save them. What better symbol to represent such a location than a spiral? There was silence as Naruto thought about all that he'd heard. "Gramps, you and Kakashi-sensei have told me a lot about my mom and her clan. But what about my dad?" And there was the question Hiruzen had known was coming. One that he had long debated on giving him an answer for. Not if, mind you, but when. Naruto would need to know, sooner or later, about his legacy and about what the Hokage suspected lied in his future. His father had left him with great burdens. Burdens that no one as young as Naruto should have to bear. But, that was how the shinobi world worked. It was far better now than it was before the villages were formed, a dark time he was glad to have only heard about, but even now all too often young shinobi were forced to carry a weight a child never should. But whether he knew about them or not, they were his burdens to carry. And knowing where he came from, of his parents' legacy and feelings, may spur Naruto on to reach his full potential. He had never told Naruto before because it wasn't information he could allow getting out. There was always the risk of spies, and his father had many enemies. He couldn't risk him blurting the secret out, as children were wont to do, especially with as grand a secret as this. But, he was a shinobi now. Truly, if still early in his career. If he couldn't keep his own secrets. Hiruzen closed his eyes and contemplated for a few moments before looking at them once more. Let's move on for now. Already expecting the blonde to speak up, the third cut him off before he had the chance. Naruto, stay afterward. It's past time I told you what you wanted to know. He then spoke to Sasuke and Sakura. This will be a private discussion, so I want you two to go home once we've concluded our business. But, Sakura started to say, only to stop when Kakashi put his hand on her shoulder and shook his head. Sasuke's eyes narrowed. No doubt the Uchiha had already deduced why he wanted them out of the room. He regarded the blonde curiously for a moment before he shrugged and looked away. Hiruzen had no visible reaction as the Uchiha's wandering eyes landed on the pictures of the four Hokage hanging from his wall. A rare expression of pure shock lit up the Uchiha's face. Hiruzen watched him choke on his breath slightly as his gaze shot back to the back of Naruto's head. The boy quickly schooled himself, however. Honestly, he was surprised that so many people who gave the boy a hard time didn't suspect given Naruto's looks. Perhaps it was people's prejudice due to the Kyuubi, but he couldn't help but mentally sigh whenever a ninja who'd known his father failed to make the connection. There weren't that many people in the village with peach skin, blonde hair, and blue eyes. And he just happened to seal the Kyuubi into a babe that shared those traits with him. That wasn't even looking underneath the underneath. And of those who did realize and did nothing, well, the less said the better. At least his successor's last remaining student had his reasons. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you recovered Zabuza's body. Hiruzen questioned, receiving a nod from Kakashi in turn, who walked to the table and placed 2 scrolls before the Hokage. The one on the left is Zabuza's weapon, the Kubikiribocho. Hiruzen nodded. That had potential. The blades of the 7 swordsmen of the mist were extremely valuable. Perhaps they could use it at some point to help broker an alliance with Kiri. They would certainly appreciate it. Once we've processed the body and turned it in, you will of course receive your compensation. Unfortunately, for the danger they faced, they would only receive the reward of AC rank mission, as that was what it had been categorized as. As soon as they had been paid and their business was concluded, Hiruzen dismissed the rest of Team 7, and Naruto stood before him. With a gesture, he ordered the hidden Anbu that kept watch over the office at all times to leave them for a moment, not that Naruto noticed, leaving them truly alone. The boy was nervous. As anxious as he no doubt was to finally find out who his father was, he was sure he could tell that what they were about to discuss was a heavy subject. The Hokage stood and turned away. He clasped his hands behind his back as he gazed out of the window at the village and remembered that terrible night 13 years ago when their village lost so much. When Naruto lost his parents. The things I'm about to tell you are all secrets of the highest order. They are not to be repeated under any circumstances. Not even to Kakashi, though he is aware of some of what I have to say. If word of this spread, you may find yourself a target of foes you cannot hope to stand against. Am I clear? He turned back to Naruto, who seemed to recognize how serious this was. The blonde nodded, which he returned. Very well. He walked around his desk, coming to a stop in front of the blonde, and kneeled down so that he was at eye level with the genin. Naruto. Your father's name was Minato Namikaze. Naruto's mind went blank. He stood frozen as he stared at his leader, his eyes wide and his mouth agape. All sound seemed to have vanished as the words of the Hokage echoed in his head. Your father's name was Minato Namikaze. The 4th Hokage. The hero he'd always looked up to. The man who'd sealed the Kyuubi inside of him. The old man made a gesture his head and looked to the far wall. Naruto followed his gaze and it landed on a picture he'd seen before. One that he'd looked at many of the times he'd been brought to this office for something he'd done, and more recently on official business as a ninja. To a picture of a man with a kind smile. With focused, intelligent blue eyes. Eyes that looked so different than his, but then Kakashi told him he'd gotten them from his mother, right? And while they may be shaped differently, they were the same shade of blue. With spiky blonde hair, and peach-colored skin. So much like what he'd see looking into the mirror every day. The very idea had just seemed so impossible that it never clicked before. He choked from the emotion welling up inside of him. His body started to tremble, his hands clenched into fists as his eyes clenched shut. I know. The old man spoke softly. I can't imagine how you must be feeling, but I know it must be overwhelming. I've wanted to tell you, since the first time you asked me. But can you look me in the eye and tell me that you wouldn't have shouted this from the rooftops if I'd told you back then? Naruto was having trouble breathing, but those words got through to him. He wouldn't be able to say that. Your father had many enemies. Enemies that may have sought vengeance upon his son had they learned you existed. That is why I couldn't tell you, but you are a shinobi now. Keeping secrets is a part of this life. Why? Naruto's breath hitched as he spoke. Why would he? Did he know what I was going to go through? I'm sure he did, Hiruzen said, closing his eyes. Then how could he do this? Naruto roared, in rage, sorrow and pain. So many emotions flying through him. For many reasons. One was simply this. Hiruzen looked him in the eye. Because as Hokage, he couldn't ask another to carry a burden, to make a sacrifice that he was not willing to. To be Hokage means to protect all in this village, to serve as a pillar of support for everyone, and mark the road for its people to follow. And also, knowing the man, I believe it was because he felt there was no one he could trust more to use that power for the best in you, rather than succumbing to it or resentment, than his own son. Because he believed in you. Tears began to flow from Naruto's eyes. He buried his face in his sleeve and wiped them away. So many conflicting thoughts filled his mind. He didn't know what to think of the fourth. His father. Part of him wanted to blame him for all that he had been through. Another part understood what the old man was saying. And another felt his heart swell at the idea that his father had faith in him. If he could meet the man now, he'd probably punch him in the gut, then hug him and not let go. He heard the Hokage rise to his feet and looked up to see him a few feet away with his back to him. There is more, Hiruzen said, and Naruto could only do his best to ready himself after that revelation, even as his eyes still shimmered. First, there are things you need to know. Things that are common knowledge in most villages but were kept from the recent generation here in Konoha in the hope that you would not be treated differently by your peers. The Kyuubi was not the only one of its kind. The blonde couldn't help but take in a soft gasp at that. It is the strongest of 9 beasts, entities of pure chakra-made flesh known as the Biju. The Biju are immortal. Should they be killed, their chakra will merely disperse and eventually reform. For that reason, and in some cases to harness their power, the 9 are sealed into humans. Humans that exhibit immense reserves of chakra and often some of the beasts' powers as a result. People like you are known as Jinchuriki. Jinchuriki. Naruto echoed the term. Hiruzen turned to him with a nod. Jinchuriki are by some regarded as their village's secret and greatest weapons. It is a lifelong status, for you see, if the Biju is removed from its container, the Jinchuriki will die. It is important you know that, for you see, your mother was the Kyuubi's previous Jinchuriki. What? But then she must have known what he would go through. But wait, that didn't make sense with what he'd been told about her before. But, Naruto struggled, so much going on in his head at the moment. Kakashi told me she held the Kyuubi down for my dad to seal it. So how could she have? The third Hokage nodded. The vitality of the Uzumaki is an amazing thing. Strong enough even to allow a Jinchuriki to survive being separated from their Biju. But while they may initially survive, the damage is mortal. Your mother lived past the beast's removal, but she was not long for this world. He then looked to the blonde in sympathy, walking forward and placing a hand on his shoulder. I understand that this is a lot to take in. Your father placed a heavy burden on your shoulders. But know this, I can tell you from having known them as well as I did. Your father loved your mother, with all his heart. He did not care about the beast sealed within her. And it would not have affected how he would have looked at you. He allowed a moment of silence at a sniffle from Naruto. And as for your mother, she would not have allowed your father to seal the Kyuubi within you without good reason, though I can only speculate as to what that reason is. But that is a discussion for another time. How did the Kyuubi escape? Hiruzen breathed deeply. When a female Jinchuriki becomes pregnant, part of the chakra that would normally maintain the seal instead nurtures the child. And during birth, it's at its absolute weakest. That said, the seal can fairly easily be maintained by a master of the sealing arts. Minato had been trained by Kushina herself. He rivaled the Uzumaki's vaunted skill in the field, so it should have been well within his abilities to keep the Kyuubi from breaking free. As for how it happened, as I said, I can only speculate. Though as silence as Naruto thought of all he'd learned before he asked a single question. What were they like? Both of them. How did they meet? And what can you tell me about my clan? Hiruzen smiled, clearly happy to tell him. Wearing the same brooding or cool as his Sakura and his former classmates would put it, expression he usually wore, Sasuke made his way up the stairs to his home. Well, where he lived anyway. It didn't feel like home. He hadn't felt at home since that night all those years ago, where he lost everything. He unlocked the door and stepped inside, taking his shoes off in the entranceway, and began to walk towards the small kitchen area. He stopped for a brief moment and looked out the window. There was a reason he chose this place when looking for an apartment. He could just barely see it from here. The district that his clan once called home. Rows upon rows of empty houses. Shops where his clansmen would sell weapons or prepare meals and snacks with closely guarded recipes. They had been a small village unto themselves, within Konoha. His family had once been that large. And it had been empty for nearly a decade. Tearing his eyes away he continued his journey, reaching the kitchen and pulling out the ingredients to make onigiri. He was still more than a little irritated by Naruto's victory over the ice user. He didn't envy Naruto for having killed their opponent, not that he blamed him either. Much as he might not like the blonde, he would have felt the same if he hadn't made it in time and thought the masked boy had killed him. The revelations since then had been rather shocking. So, the dead last was the survivor of a once great clan, like himself. And the son of the fourth Hokage no less. It hadn't been hard to put the pieces together on that once he realized the only reason to keep quiet about his father's identity was if he had enemies. But he was still trying to wrap around it. Specifically, the fact that no one had noticed. Or at least no one noticed and said or did anything. He was observant enough to have noted that a lot of the blonde's behavior was the result of how he was treated, not the other way around. Once he knew that his parents' identity was a secret, it had seemed so obvious. There weren't that many big names that had anything in common with Naruto. All shinobi who had served under the man or worked alongside him. And no one even suspected. You'd think at least a few people who knew his father well would have reached out to him when he was treated like a pariah. And why was he treated like that, anyway? Yeah, there was something fishy there, but he didn't have enough information to figure out what. He finished cooking and sat down at his table, silently eating the meal. He rarely wasted his time with the television, despite the decent one sitting against the wall at the side of his bed. Well, the blonde's heritage hardly mattered to him. That was something he'd admit he had in common with Naruto: you had to earn respect yourself. Unless he started showing the talents his clan or his father was known for, it wouldn't change his view of him. Interesting to know, but that was about it. After finishing his meal and then the cleanup after, he went to his room to prepare for a shower. As he did, he spied the only real personal effect in the house. The picture Team 7 took on the day they officially became a team. Kakashi eyes smiling as he ruffled his and Naruto's hair, Naruto glaring at him and Sakura smiling at the front. He thought of what his sensei had told them after the final battle in Wave and briefly thought of his mother. That their mothers had been friends and had wanted them to be in turn. That he didn't know what to think about. Sakura had spent most of her time in her room since she got home. A brief detour to the kitchen to pick up a snack, a lackluster greeting to her parents, a shower, and then straight to bed where she stared at the ceiling. And there she remained, her thoughts a jumbled mess of self-depreciation. In doing so, you saved an impoverished nation from a dark fate and granted them new hope. The words of Lord Third ran through her mind. Not only that, but you rekindled the wills of its downtrodden people. For this, you should be proud, as I am to call you shinobi of this village. But I didn't do anything, she thought. It was all Sasuke and Naruto. I can't even say I guarded Tazuna. The one time he needed protecting it was from Zabuza. I may as well not have even been there. What had she been thinking back in the academy? Doing the absolute minimum of training so she could focus on her looks. Relying on academics to get her through in a profession where life and death battles were normal. She couldn't remember if she'd ever considered that would mean her teammates would have to carry her.
I
That she
want to
would weigh them
thank
down when a screw-up could get
everybody
them all
that
killed.
came in for
Stupid. So
the
stupid.
show.
And she hadn't been a good
Thank
teammate to
you,
them, had she?
and have a wonderful day. See you guys later if I decide to stream again.